Ultimately, there are three goals when we strengthen the partnership model. Midwives are already highly skilled, so the goal has to be to reduce their fatigue. They're always going to have to deal with the politics, but they should be enlivened, invigorated, get pleasure from and enjoyment in the work that they do in a partnership with other adults. For the pregnant woman and her supportive birth coach, the goal should be what Birthing Better Families taught me and what we call the continuity of self. We all acknowledge that we are skilled adults. We get pregnant, somehow we drop into this incredible unskilled phase of our life for some reason. And until the first childbirth classes were taught, we continued to feel unskilled through birth because there's no way to know what your birth will be like. And somehow we're expected to almost immediately become skilled as parents. So Birthing Better Families focused on a continuity of self, to come into pregnancy skilled at whatever we do as adults, and in pregnancy to become skilled, particularly around preparation for birth and in birth, because it's an activity. When we focus ourselves on becoming skilled to prepare our body for birth and to learn skills that we'll use during the birth of our baby, and then we apply those skills after the birth, we have a continuity of self because we have continued to grow and evolve and develop a set of skills that then become life skills as we parent. I can't stress enough the importance of the role of the father or other in becoming skilled and within this partnership. As mentioned, when I gave birth, there was a very high societal expectation in the U.S. that we all attend the first childbirth classes, which primarily were Lamaze. And as I mentioned, Bradley was called husband coach childbirth. Fathers were coming into births because we as women wanted them. We didn't want to be left alone to discover birth by ourselves. We wanted help to cope. And when fathers came in, the Lamaze and Bradley methods weren't very sophisticated. So Birthing Better fathers developed many of the Birthing Better skills. But I don't want to confuse the concept, which includes all skills-based methods, with the Birthing Better skills. The concept includes all skills-based methods that anyone would like to choose for their own birth. Some involve fathers more than others. That's their choice. When Birthing Better skills began to develop, fathers wanted better skills to help better, and women wanted them to have better skills than looking at a stopwatch and timing contractions and picking up their arms to see if they were a rag doll. And so both men and women developed the breathing, communication, and touch skills in Birthing Better, and many of what we call the soft skills, such as teamwork. It was men who understood that contractions actually had 5 phases of them. And then in the 80s, it was men who realized that you had a big object that had to get out of a container. And if you could prepare the pregnant body to open up, it would be easier for this object to come out. But apart from Birthing Better skills, the importance of having men or others be competent in the role of the birth coach cannot be understated. We must grow competent families. This very challenging experience of pregnancy and giving birth is a perfect place to do that. It requires attention. It requires working together. It requires meeting the challenges of how big the experience of giving birth is. And it gives families the ability after birth to feel proud of themselves, to feel empowered, even if they do very little. Anything that we do for ourselves usually encourages us to do better as we know better and as we have better skills. We refine. That's what we do as adults. So we cannot stress how important it is for midwives to now include the significant other or others in these goals to strengthen the midwifery partnership. Andrea Vincent didn't expect to see any change in parenting from growing a skilled birthing population and strengthening her partnership. What she discovered was families were much less reliant on her during pregnancy, and they continued to work together through birth and through parenting, so that the postpartum period was also defined by mothers and her support person feeling confident to use skills or to look at what skills they would like to develop. There's no loss in strengthening the partnership. It's only gains. And it's clear gains for the midwives, and it's clear gains for the mother and the other. Realizing that so few people in New Zealand would know the history in the United States and probably didn't know the Brand study from 1961 means that this series may help people tie the past to the present and see how simply the present could have been different. Had decisions been made in the past, there were different decisions. Had Lamaze and Bradley and Grantley Dick Reed advocated for 100% of pregnant women to learn skills, regardless of their risk, regardless of what type of medical care surrounded them at the birth, we would be now in the third generation of families in a societal expectation to learn skills when you're pregnant and use them at birth. Had Grantley Dick Reed and Bradley and Lamaze said that primarily skills should be used to just reduce the suffering in childbirth, and then to see whether skills increase the capacity for women to birth spontaneously with less medical assessments, monitoring procedures, or those having lots of them to still birth efficiently, and to try to reduce or prevent those long, exhausting labors for mothers and babies. Had the strong global natural birth movement and home birth movement of the late 70s and 80s, had they recognized the strength of the skills-based approach to childbirth, had they been exposed to 100% of pregnant women and their partners learning skills, had they been exposed to 100% of mothers and fathers using skills to reduce or prevent suffering and to increase efficiency of labor, then choices and skills would have gone hand in hand. More skills methods would have evolved over that 20-year period besides birthing better, and we'd have a plethora of skills-based methods, just as we have lots of books about how to make love better just because you have this physiological drive to have sex, or lots of books to cook better just because we have this physiological drive of hunger. I've always repeated the same thing for 50 years. When we put out the flyer, it was with the hope that NOSCOM, as an independent, autonomous healthcare branch, would have seen the benefits of their autonomous members encouraging their partners to take on one small task, to learn skills and use those skills when they birth their baby. We know from Andrea's experience that 20 to 30% of the general population will immediately say yes to the idea. All consumers look to their professionals for guidance. This is not going to rise up from women. It must come from midwives wanting to have a stronger partnership. Midwives wanting to be less tired. Midwives realizing that if we are tired, it is because we are giving too much and others aren't doing enough. It's easy to get 70 to 85% of expectant families willing to self-learn skills when midwives give a clear, concise message of expectation and follow through. Our trust is more than happy to work with everyone. We believe NOSCOM should lead the way. We'll work with 100 to 150 midwives. We'll work with the district health boards. We'll work with the national governments. This is easy to implement, and the results are rapid. You just follow the script. The script is concise, it's short, it's clear. Once families pick a skills-based method, it's important you keep notes. You don't need to learn the skills. Just every appointment, what skill did they learn and what method did they use? And it's very important for families that if they're doing well, that they get praised. We knew that in the 70s, that when a labor and delivery nurse or obstetrician came in and said, "Oh, we just love working with women who are handling themselves so well and fathers that are helping. We just love working with you guys." It was a revelation. If families are looking stressed, it's easy to look into the notes and encourage people to use the skills they've told you they've learned. Some will say, "I said I learned them, but I didn't." That's okay. We're not looking for perfect, we're looking for growth. And it's important afterwards to talk about the skills and their experience. What worked, what didn't work, were there skills they wish they had had. The midwifery partnership is based on an adult model of working together, with each partner having their own set of skills for their task and their job and their role. Midwives are there to protect and care for, give continuity of care, respect choices, monitor, make certain everything's well. Women are doing the birth. Their role is equally as important, as we discovered from the 60s through the late 70s. It built families when families worked together effectively. It helped families stay together because they worked together well. And we need to make certain that this time 100% of pregnant women and their other are told to become skilled. I don't know about the other skills-based methods. I know about birthing better. When the skills began to develop, the cesarean rate was 4.5%. We weren't focused on that in the 70s, but by the 80s we were. And we always made a commitment that everyone should be skilled because of this continuity of self. We don't get pregnant often in life. And when we learn skills in pregnancy, prepare our body for the birth of our baby, even when we know it's going to be a non-laboring cesarean, this gives us more engagement, more positive experience, brings our family closer together, and it's enjoyable to work together. It is the continuity of self. At least birthing better families, those of us who had non-laboring cesareans, we would use the skills on the way to the hospital. We'd see that as our labor, while being prepped, our transition, and during the birth. We didn't ask permission of our care providers to do that. Many of them probably didn't know we were. What they saw was a family engaged and participating in the birth of their baby. Families who have unplanned cesareans after they've labored, if they've used the birthing better skills, they're encouraged to continue to use the skills while being prepped. That's the transition. And during surgery, rather than to disconnect, stay engaged, because parenting requires us to stay engaged, particularly in challenging times. I don't know about the other skills-based methods and how they deal with these circumstances. Birthing better skills have always worked in all births because from the 70s, we took on the message that was not being given, which is 100% of pregnant women will give birth. And it's always an activity we're doing with our baby. And we can always use skills to birth better. Every birth is important to each of our families. We are where we are because we've been doing what we've been doing. And what we've been doing was based on a smaller and less inclusive vision about families, about pregnancy, and childbirth. If NOSCOM chooses to work with our trust to help this integration occur, the change will be so rapid. NOSCOM needs to want to do this. And hopefully they will reach out to 100 to 150 midwives to do this informally. It can't be a study. It's complex. However, we will know within 2 years more about the effectiveness of skills and more about the effectiveness of which skills-based methods produce the broadest, most inclusive successes for families. Imagine yourselves now doing the work you're doing, but working with 8 out of 10 skilled mothers and fathers. Families who said yes, and families who self-learned skills. Imagine what it will be like to have a partnership working together with other skilled adults. Let's go forward. Let's finally fill in the gaps, because now we know. And because we know, we do better.